Hello everyone, I'm Mike D'Angelo with Fast Entertainment, and this is your retro review of Spelunker by Micrographic Image. When gaming was a relatively new advent, there were several brands of titles that you could surely rely on. You had your Rescue the Princess games, your Defend the World from Alien Invader games, and you had your Weird Creatures Doing Weird Things games. As time went on though, you had titles that were a little more adventurous in their presentation. Spelunker was a game that shrunk down the platforming elements of Mario before the plumber was even racing to save Princess Peach. It almost feels like one of those labyrinth games you had with the metal marble and the dials that would tilt the maze in one direction or another. It's difficult, but the challenge makes you feel so deserving of your victory. Sometimes, being early to the party doesn't always make you the cool kid though. Was Spelunker too quick to show, or did that head start actually help out? There is a legend that speaks of a grand treasure at the bottom of a colossal cavern complex. You step into the shoes of a nameless spelunker who will stop at nothing to reach the fabled prize. Unfortunately, as you travel throughout the cave, you learn that there are some guardians that don't want you there, may even be haunted by those that have fallen before your arrival. Sure, the story itself isn't really all that impressive, and I gave it some much needed additional flavor just now, but how many games of the NES era really had spectacular stories to begin with? In a lot of ways, Spelunker is very similar to the game Pitfall. You're not necessarily trying to kill enemies as much as navigate hazards. Sure, there are foes like bats and ghosts that need a little coercing to let you through, but your real competition is with yourself. Spelunker's controls are so hair-trigger slippery that you're often the reason for your own demise. This can be anything from inching your minecart too close into the fiery blast coming from the ceiling, or walking just one step further than you should, and ending up careening the mere inches onto a platform just below you. You can even slip from various ropes and ladders to your doom with the minutest of movements. A huge part of the game relies on your exploration and collection skills. You have a limited air supply, and that adds to the tension. You don't exactly have the time to lollygag and think about what's necessary. You just charge forward and hope for the best. There are also bombs, flares, ammunition, keys, and gold that are just dying to be picked up. You just have to make sure you aren't dying while making an attempt to liberate them from the cavern. The graphics in Spelunker were fairly minimalist. The display was much more shrunk down than, say, Super Mario Bros. Or Zelda, and with that in mind, it was fairly impressive. The music was slightly less so. There were only 2 or 3 songs that the game used, and they were on endless loops that weren't very pleasing to listen to. Some of the sound effects, like whenever a bat was on the screen, could even be downright annoying. That said, the main theme wasn't the worst thing to get stuck in your head. Spelunker did not first appear on the NES. The true original game was on Atari's 8-bit computer. It was surprisingly well done for the time, and while the sound and graphics are a little off, it has aged pretty well. A sequel came out in Japan that was very little like the original game. It played more like Montezuma's Revenge or Pitfall than its predecessor. Spelunker also had an HD remake that Sony published in 2010 in North America, which released with improved graphics and sound. Finally, anyone who's a fan of procedurally created dungeon crawling will know that Spelunker was also somewhat the inspiration for Spelunky. Though it comes in a very minimalist package, Spelunker was the kind of game that you could just keep coming back to over and over again. Once you knew you were up against very unforgiving controls, it was a very fun game to play. And though the game itself is very linear, it still stands up to the test of time, and had varied enough components to the map to keep things feeling fresh.